Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Monday, December 10th. This being taped about 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time. The stock market was largely unchanged today as we all wait around for resolution on the fiscal cliff issue or some kind of clarity. Dow finished up 14 points at 13,169. The S&P 500 was unchanged. And NASDAQ was up 8 to 29.86. Gold was at 17.13. Oil 85.70. And the 10-year Treasury at 1.62%. It's a big week, big 8 to 10 days specifically. The referendum in Egypt. Japanese elections on the 16th, South Korean elections on December 19th. The Fed is meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday, and of course the ongoing fiscal cliff drama. First off, in Japan, third quarter GDP fell 0.9%, and the second quarter was revised down 0.1%, thus technically the definition of a recession in Japan. Another one, a big blow to Prime Minister Noda as he nears these nationwide elections on Sunday. China had all kinds of news. Exports for November rose just 2.9% year on year, much worse than expected. Imports also were worse, unchanged from November of 2011. Back to exports, that 2.9% figure was down from an 11.6% increase in October. But the good news, industrial production rose 10.1% for the month. Electricity production very closely followed, up 7.9%. That's good. And retail sales were up a strong 14.9% in November, again year over year. And the consumer price index in China was up just 2% for November. In Italy, Prime Minister Mario Monti announced he will resign early once a 2013 budget is approved, having lost the support of People of Freedom, which is Silvio Berlusconi's party. An early election could be held as soon as mid-February. Berlusconi is seeking to become prime minister now for a fourth time, as he announced he's running. For starters, being prime minister would impede the sex and abuse of office convictions should such verdicts be handed down in the Rubygate trial. Berlusconi has criticized Monti for his German-centric programs. Berlusconi would campaign against German austerity. His party, though, and they may change the name of it because of the scandals, the party stands at just 18% in the last poll that I saw versus 37% for a center-left coalition, Berlusconi's center-right. The center-left coalition is led by Pierluigi Bersani, a pro-Euro leader. But the issue is, what will Mario Monti himself do, and will he run? Well, according to the Financial Times, late this afternoon, Monti is in talks with centrist groups. He could make a decision next week. Turning to Greece, they extended their debt buyback until Tuesday in order to raise the intended 30 billion euro face value at a deep discount. The banks will cover the difference if need be. And Euro leaders are meeting later in the week to go over plans for a single banking supervisor, and that is extremely contentious. I'd be shocked if there was an agreement. In the UK, manufacturing output fell 1.3% in October over September, not good. In Germany, October exports rose 0.3% over September, which was a bit of a positive surprise. But officially for the third quarter, German exports to other Euro area nations fell 3%, to give you a true sense of how sick the Eurozone is. But German exports to non-Euro nations rose in the third quarter 9.9%, including 25.7% to the US. Not bad. Okay, the fiscal cliff. The White House refuses to discuss Social Security. Medicare wants to tweak but not raise the eligibility age. Speaker Boehner and Obama met face-to-face on Sunday, the first one-on-one since July of last year. But a possible plan or outline of one, a stopgap deal, might look something like the following. The top tax rate would be below 39.6, or the compromise would raise the $250,000 limit you hear about to at least $500,000. Healthcare savings would come from adopting a cost of living increase for Social Security recipients, which is a no-brainer, and $100 billion in across-the-board agency cuts. But Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin argued against two Obama ideas from 2011, raising the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 67 and changing the inflation measure. The first would shift cost onto employers and Obama's new healthcare initiative, according to analysts. And the second would affect programs well beyond Social Security. Durbin said, would a reduction in the COLA, the cost of living allowance, apply to disabled veterans benefits, he asked. Ready for that vote on the floor? Well, that's the mentality, Senator, that is killing us, sending us spiraling down, Greek-like. Separately, the Wall Street Journal had a front-page piece warning today of a slowing consumer. No doubt uncertainty generated by this whole fiscal cliff issue has played a role, and of course the consumer is 70% of economic output, as you all know, sports fans. So let's go to the Sunday talk shows in the fiscal cliff and how Republicans weighed in. Senator Bob Corker, Republican Tennessee, said he's beginning to believe that falling in line with President Obama's call to raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans, then shifting the focus to reforming entitlements is the best route for us to take on the fiscal cliff. There is a growing group of folks that are looking at this and realizing that we don't have a lot of cards on the tax issue before year end, Corker said on Fox News Sunday. A lot of people are putting forth a theory, and I actually think it has merit, where you go ahead, give the president the 2% increase that he is talking about, the rate increase on the top 2%, and all of a sudden the shift goes back to entitlements. Corker continues, Republicans know that they have the debt ceiling coming up right around the corner. The leverage is going to shift to our side. We are going to do the same thing we did last time. If the president wants to raise the level by $2 trillion, we get $2 trillion in spending reductions. Corker said House Speaker Boehner would only agree to raising the debt limit if Democrats agree to cut entitlement spending. The only thing, or the only, what the debt ceiling is given up is that the president comes to the table, talks to Speaker Boehner about real entitlement reform, according to Corker. Without that, there is no way the debt ceiling is going to be given up. Republican Representative Tom Cole of Oklahoma said his constituents understand that their taxes are going up automatically early in the new year unless Congress acts, and they would like to be taken out of the line of fire, he said. They expect me to continue to fight for everybody's taxes not going up, but if I can get a deal that protects 98% of them and leaves me free to continue fighting for them, they would say, take that deal. That's progress. That's maybe working together across the aisle a little bit and get it done. Republican Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, my personal favorite. Everybody in this country will have to participate in some discomfort if we're going to get out of this hole. And he said he's willing to accept tax rate increases as a component of a fiscal cliff deal as long as Democrats put significant entitlement reform on the table. What we ought to be working on is the other 93%, because even if you do what Obama wants to do on tax rates, you only affect 7% of the deficit. That's been Coburn's sticking point all along for years now. What we have done is spend ourselves into a hole, and we're not going to raise taxes and borrow money and get out of it. And so I will accept a tax increase as part of a deal to actually solve the problem. But Republican colleague Representative Jeb Hensarling of Texas disagreed. He said the Republicans shouldn't vote for a tax increase which they believe will harm the economy. No Republican wants to vote for a rate tax increase, he said. I mean, what that is going to do, according to the National Federation of Independent Business, that commissioned a study by Ernst & Young, is cost 700,000 Americans to go from having paychecks to unemployment checks. Hensarling said that President Obama pulled a bait and switch on congressional Republicans by adding a demand for tax rate increases after the election. In 2011, Obama had suggested that $1.2 trillion could be raised by closing loopholes and pursuing tax reform alone without raising taxes. The president, again, if he would do what he said before the election, as opposed to the bait and switch, what Republicans feel like is a little bit like Charlie Brown running to kick the football and Lucy pulls it away, Hensarling said. He added that Obama's proposal to eliminate future congressional votes to authorize an increase in the debt ceiling was surprising. I must admit I didn't know the president could surprise me once again, but to say that he no longer wants to have a debt ceiling, in other words, we no longer even need a speed bump on the highway to bankruptcy. I mean, let's look at Greece, Hensarling said. Greece has been very adept at increasing their debt ceiling, and now they have 25% unemployment, 50% youth unemployment. Edward Luce of the Financial Times opined on this topic. "We like this new President Obama," said the liberal Chicago Sun-Times last week, and well it might. In contrast to his handling of the August 2011 debt crisis, Mr. Obama has so far stayed resolute on the fiscal cliff. His insistence on a tax increase for the wealthiest 2% might look like a victory lap, but he is aiming to settle more than old scores. If Mr. Obama manages to get enough Republicans to vote for a tax increase, it could plunge their party into civil war. Turning to Egypt, President Mohamed Morsi has deployed the military as he is determined to hold a referendum on the draft constitution December 15. Large demonstrations are slated to take place at the presidential palace on Tuesday. Of course, they turned deadly last week. The opposition is calling for a boycott of the vote. In effect, martial law has been declared. The army is allowed to arrest civilians. On Sunday, Morsi withdrew almost all the provisions of a decree granting himself sweeping powers and out of the reach of judicial review, but then he went ahead with this referendum. Islamist groups have vowed to counter any opposition protests just like last week. Also, since the military has many vested interests, including significant economic ones, it's not clear where it really stands. The new defense minister, for example, is an Islamist. Sami Ashur, a spokesman for a coalition that calls itself the National Salvation Front, said the opposition rejects lending legitimacy to a referendum that will definitely lead to more sedition and division. Holding a referendum in a state of seething and chaos amounted to a reckless and flagrant absence of responsibility, risking driving the country into violent confrontations that endanger its national security. Turning to Israel, Ambassador Michael Oren, appearing on Fox News Sunday, said he could not confirm reports that Syrian President Bashar Assad's forces had prepared sarin gas for use, but he said Israel was worried that Syria could transfer the weapons to Hezbollah. We are watching the situation very clearly, Mr. Oren said. Syria has a very varied, deep chemical weapons program. It is geographically dispersed as well. Were those weapons to pass into the wrong hands, Hezbollah's hands, for example, that would be a game changer. We have a clear red line about those weapons passing into the wrong hands. Can you imagine Hezbollah, with its 70,000 rockets, getting its hands on chemical weapons? That could kill thousands of people. That was Michael Oren, Israeli ambassador to the U.S. In Syria, rebels have elected a new 30-member leadership council and a chief of staff, a positive step to unifying opposition to Assad. Russia, though, continued to offer its support of him. I apologize. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made it clear Sunday that Moscow had not soured on him, on Assad. We are not conducting any negotiations on the fate of Assad. All attempts to portray things differently are unscrupulous, even for diplomats of those countries which are known to try to distort the facts in their favor. A distinct shot at the West and officials who hinted Russia was ready to aid in Assad's removal. I just want to go back to the Palestinian, Israeli, Hamas, Hezbollah situation. Hamas leader Khalid Mashal made his first visit to Gaza over the weekend after 45 years in exile. And he said, quote, "Palestine is ours from the river to the sea and from the south to the north. There will be no concession on an inch of the land." There's a crowd of about 500,000 listening to him. Mashal added, "We will never recognize the legitimacy of the Israeli occupation, and therefore there is no legitimacy for Israel, no matter how long it will take." To which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the following day that Mashal's comments exposed our enemy's true face once again. Hamas has no intention of compromising with us. They want to destroy the state. They will fail, of course, in the annals of the history of our people. We, the Jewish people, have overcome such enemies. Netanyahu also noted that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas did not condemn Mashal's remarks advocating the destruction of Israel, just as previously he did not condemn the missiles that were fired at Israel. I apologize, got the order mixed up there. Lastly, North Korea has extended the launch window for its next ballistic missile test until December 29. So any time from here to December 29, more likely any time between about December 15th and the 29th. Weather might have something to do with it. Just saw a report, it's about 8 degrees at the launch site. Well, that's all for tonight. I'll be back with you tomorrow, Tuesday. Keep the men and women of our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. Thanks for your notes on my half marathon Saturday down in Kiowa, South Carolina. I did 2 minutes better than last year, which was 3 minutes better than 2009. So at age 54, I could still do it. 2 hours, 9 minutes. chip time. You can look it up. Take care.